Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to be doing something different. I'm going to be ranking some horror movies today. And as you can see here, we have the rankings from terrible to the movie rules. Even if it rules, obviously it will be at the top. So let's get started. All right, now let's start with A Quiet Place. And I saw this movie recently, and to be honest with you, I didn't really see what all the hype was about. I know people really like it, but I don't know. I didn't really care for it. It wasn't terrible, but I read somewhere that the guy who made it doesn't really like horror movies, and honestly, it kind of shows. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna put it at mediocre, and that's fair. That's definitely fair. Now, next, let's see. Let's do Hereditary. So, Hereditary is a pretty good movie. Um, it's by the guy who made Midsummer, which I also enjoyed. And if that's on the list, then I'll be excited to review that one. If you haven't seen Hereditary, it's kind of reminiscent of Rosemary's Baby. And if you like those kinds of movies, then I would definitely recommend it. I'm going to put it at good. It's not quite great, but it is worth watching. So if you get the chance, I do recommend Hereditary. All right, now let's move on to It. And this is the remake from 2017. And to be honest, I did not have high hopes for this at all. I really liked the original from 1990 with Tim Curry as Pennywise, and I was a little bit worried that this would not be anywhere near as good as remakes. Oftentimes they're not. But I actually really, really like this movie. I thought it was super creepy. The special effects were very well done, and the performances were really good as well. So I'm going to put it at great. I mean, for what it is, I think it accomplished it pretty well. And let's see. Next, let's do Get Out. Now, Get Out is a movie that I enjoyed. I thought it was unique. However, I did not think it was quite as original as a lot of people said it was. And the reason I say that is because many of you know there was a movie in the 70s called The Stepford Wives, and it explores a lot of similar themes. Um, but I guess you could say it's a modern take in a different direction, and I really liked it for what it is in that sense. I'm gonna put it at good. I know that a lot of people might think that it belongs at great or rules, but um, maybe if I watch it again, I would like it a little more, and then it might change rankings. But it's definitely worth watching. Up next, let's do Train to Busan. Now, I didn't actually like this movie at all. I saw this movie in the theater when it came out. It was like 2015 or 16 or something. And I was pretty disappointed. I don't really like my zombie movies to have drama and like sentimental kind of cheesiness, and this one has a lot of that. And it's a far cry from the George Romero zombie movies, that's for sure. So I can't recommend it. I mean, I know a lot of people love it. I really don't. Uh, I I can't decide. I'm tempted to put it in the bad category. I just didn't think it was very good. And it could also be that people way overhyped that movie. And I think that had an effect on how much I enjoyed it for sure. All right, let's see. And by the way, I'm going to be leaving out the movies that I haven't seen because I haven't seen them, so I can't have an opinion on them. And let's see here. Let's do The Witch. The Witch is good. Um, what I will say though is that the dialogue in The Witch is a little bit hard to follow just because their accents are so thick. But I thought it was really creepy, and it was a different kind of horror movie, very similar to the kind of horror movie that Hereditary is. The directors who make those movies they've kind of found their own niche, and it's really kind of interesting what they're doing with the horror genre. So I'm gonna put The Witch at. I'll put it at good. It's good. It's worth watching. Definitely check it out. And let's see, Cabin in the Woods. So Cabin in the Woods, I saw this movie again recently, and I used to really like this movie. When I saw it in the theater, I thought it was awesome. But after watching it a second time, it doesn't hold up anymore. I'm sorry to say. I know people compare it to the Evil Dead movies, and honestly, it's nowhere near as good as those. Um, it's kind of silly, and the effects are not that great by today's standards. The CGI, I mean, and it's honestly hovering between mediocre and bad, which is interesting because years ago when I first saw it, I would have put it at like good or even great, but it's definitely fallen in the rankings. I'm going to say mediocre. Yeah, it's not that great anymore. And let's see. What do we have here? Okay, Trick or Treat. I freaking love Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat is one of those movies that I need to watch every Halloween. It just gets better and better. I really like the horror anthology type movies, kind of like Creep Show. And this movie is a lot of fun. I'm going to say it rules, guys. Uh, this movie is, you got to watch it if you haven't seen it. It's a good time. It takes all the elements of horror and makes them really fun and kind of uh, very much in the spirit of Halloween. So definitely check out Trick or Treat if you haven't seen it. All right. Now let's see. I'm just going to pick random movies. I'm not going to go in the order down here. Let's do Final Destination. Final Destination is a movie that I liked a lot when I was a kid, and I still do. I think it actually holds up. It's pretty entertaining. I also think it's interesting that it's one of the horror movies that Roger Ebert said he liked, which surprises me because it doesn't seem like something that he would give a thumbs up to, but he actually liked it, and so did I. Um, Devon Sawa, who now plays in the new Chucky series, is really good in this movie. And it's definitely, what I will say though, it's definitely a product of its time. It has a very 2000s feel. And sorry, my mouse keeps moving this up and down. I'll try to stop doing that. I'm going to put this at good. It's good. Soon I'm going to run out of space here. Um, if you're in the mood for one of those like late 90s kind of fun teen horror movies, this is a good choice for sure. And let's see, up next, let's see, why don't we do um in the vein of 90s teen horror movies, let's do Scream. So I have not seen the new Scream movie yet, and yes, I will make that happen eventually, but it just hasn't happened yet. So the original Scream is pretty awesome. Is it great? No, it's not a perfect movie, but it was unique what it did at the time, and it influenced a lot of movies like Final Destination. So I'm gonna put it right next to Final Destination. Um, I would say Scream is slightly better than Final Destination, but it's not quite great. Sorry. Just my opinion, guys. You can trash me in the comments. I don't care. Let's do the Blair Witch Project next. So the Blair Witch Project is awesome. This movie, I don't know how they managed to make such a scary movie out of like nothing, but they pull it off. And to me, that's impressive. When I watch it by myself and it's nighttime and there's no one around, I get freaked out. Like I can't even like I will have trouble sleeping that same night. Let me tell you that much. From all the found footage movies, this is by far the best one, and it's pretty much the original, unless you count like Cannibal Holocaust or something. But um, this does it the best. If you haven't seen the Blair Witch Project, then I don't even know how you can call yourself a horror fan, frankly. And let's see, let's do. Well, since that was a found footage movie, let's do Paranormal Activity. I've only seen this once, and it was a long time ago. And I know I'm going to get so much shit for this. But this movie, it actually made me laugh more than scream. I thought the effects looked really cheesy. Like when you stop and think about that, the effects, like the door moving and closing, was probably just a string attached to the door or something. Then the rest of the movie is really, really funny. And I enjoyed it on that level. But as a horror movie, I cannot say that it scared me or anything like that. So I'm gonna put it at fair. Yeah. And let's see. I'm gonna pick. Let's do another haunted house movie. Let's do The Conjuring. The Conjuring's good. I rewatched it again recently. Um, However, when I saw it in the theater, I thought it was better, and I think that's because I saw it in the theater. So, what I will say is if you watch The Conjuring, make sure that you see it in a theater if you can. I don't even know if you can now, but if anywhere's playing it in the theater, watch it there. It's better in the theater for sure. So, I'll say it's good. I like The Conjuring. All right, and let's do Event Horizon. This movie's kind of awesome. I won't say it rules because it's got some issues, but the effects are cool. I love the epic ending of this movie. It's like so over the top and awesome. I'm not really a huge fan of the sci-fi horror genre necessarily, but this one does it pretty well. And Event Horizon is totally underrated. So if you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. All right. Up next, let's do Night of the Living Dead. Okay. Night of the Living Dead rules. And the reason I say that is because it's scary. It is scary. It has a very creepy kind of documentary like feel. And for some reason, the fact that it's in black and white makes it even creepier, especially that scene where the girl attacks her mother with the garden tool or whatever. I remember I had nightmares from that movie as a kid, and it holds up. It's still one of the best zombie movies ever made, for sure. And let's see, let's keep going with the zombie movies. Let's do Dawn of the Dead from 1978. And I really like Dawn of the Dead. Is it perfect? I don't know. I'm gonna put it at great. I love the music. I love that it's super long. It's like one of the longest horror movies ever, and it just takes place in a shopping mall, which is crazy because a lot of the scenes are filmed in like bright lights with these fluorescent lights hitting all the zombies, and you don't really see horror movies film scary scenes like that. Usually it's in the dark or something with bad lighting. And Dawn of the Dead is unique in that sense. And George Romero was clearly making some kind of statement by having all those zombies in the shopping mall. He's probably has something to say about American consumers in our society for sure. So I thought that was funny. And let's see. Let's do another zombie movie. Brain Dead, which I know as Dead Alive, is awesome. I'm gonna put it at great next to Dawn of the Dead. It's really fun. It's not scary at all, but the special effects are way, way over the top. I remember that Eli Roth had said that Dead Alive or Brain Dead is like the goriest movie he's ever seen in his life. And that's a lot coming from Eli Roth. And he's absolutely right. It is a gore fest. And the fact that it was directed by Peter Jackson is kind of amazing just because you wouldn't expect this Oscar winning director to make a movie as crazy and over the top filled with gore as this movie. So, yeah, I definitely recommend this. It's kind of a fun movie to watch with your friends if you've never seen it because they'll just be shocked at what he puts on the screen. It is crazy. So let's see. Um let's do Alien. All right. Alien is awesome. It rules. There's just no other way to put it. I love the fact that it looks like it was made today. It does not look like it was made in 1979 at all. And it is scary. The the way that it builds suspense slowly and it does it so effectively and I rewatched it again recently and it definitely holds up. This movie, Alien, is going to be remembered for years and years and years and years after we're all gone. I promise you, historians will be talking about this movie for sure. And let's see, I'm gonna pick, let's do The Fly. Okay, so The Fly is awesome. I'm gonna say it's great. It's almost at a rules level, not quite, but it almost makes the cut. Uh, it's pretty gory. It's pretty graphic. It's also a horror love story, which is interesting. Kind of has like a Beauty and the Beast theme going with it, and it's really a movie that just has three people in it, and that's kind of rare for a horror movie, but it's really effective. I mean, and Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum are awesome in it. John Getz, who plays the ex-boyfriend of Gina Davis, is also very good in it. And I just remember that at the horror makeup show at Universal Orlando, they used to have the telepods from this movie. And I thought that was the coolest thing because they would have this guy go in one telepod and come out the other one all made up as a fly. And it was super gross. I wish they still did that, but they don't anymore. If you haven't seen The Fly, it's awesome. You have to watch it. Okay, now let's do The Birds. The Birds. Okay. So I love Alfred Hitchcock. I'm a huge fan of his movies. I like The Birds. It's not one of his best movies, though. It just isn't. It's probably like maybe number 10, 11 on the list of his movies. Um, but it does have some interesting themes, like with the main character who goes to this small town and kind of everyone has the sense that she's like brought a curse with her because I guess she brings this sort of young, sort of hip, um, urban sense with her that the city people feel threatened by. And it kind of manifests itself as all the birds in the sky like flying down and attacking the village people. So I thought that that was kind of interesting. I'm gonna put it at good. I mean, it definitely needs to be watched if you haven't seen it, especially if you're in like film school or something. They'll probably make you watch that, and the effects are are kind of hit and miss, but overall, I enjoy the birds. As far as the killer animal genre goes, there's like three or four other movies I would put ahead of it, so it's not even in the top of that genre, but it's still worth watching if you haven't seen it. All right. Now, speaking of killer animal movies, let's do Arachnophobia. Arachnophobia is kind of awesome. I'm going to put it at great. So, Arachnophobia is really cool because they use real spiders in the movie, and none of them were hurt or anything like that. But they didn't really go for unrealistic, like fake, over the top spiders. They're like, let's use real spiders because that's scary enough. And they were absolutely right to do that because even though the spiders are like this big in that movie, um, there's so many of them, and they put them in these really like creepy places where you would feel super vulnerable, like under a toilet or in the shower or in the helmet of a football player. And even now, like whenever I go to turn out the light in a lamp, like under the shade, I'm always worried that a spider is gonna drop down and try to bite me or something, because that happens in this movie. And it also has a great soundtrack and good performances by Jeff Goldblum and John Goodman's in it. Let's see who else. The wife is Harley Jane Kozak. She's good in it. And Julian Sands, who plays the scientist, is also great in it too. I would recommend Arachnophobia. It wasn't directed by Steven Spielberg, but it definitely feels like a Spielberg movie when you watch it. You feel like he could have directed it. I think he produced it or something. And so definitely check that out. All right, let's see. Let's do The Shining. Okay, The Shining is one of the best horror movies ever. Uh, you could argue that it's the best horror movie ever. I didn't really appreciate it until I watched it at a movie theater in Santa Cruz and they showed it on film on the big screen. And it was so much creepier than I remembered and had watched it on a TV. The music is really disturbing. And whenever I hear it, it kind of, you think, oh no, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. And the performances are fantastic, obviously, by Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall, who gives an absolutely incredible performance where she just looks totally stressed and tired, like she hasn't had any sleep for months or something, which I think was the case. And you just have this sense of isolation, unlike any other movie I can think of. So I'm sure most of you watching this have probably seen The Shining, but if you haven't, you need to watch it. And if you haven't seen it on the big screen and you find out that it's playing in a theater near you, you have to go watch The Shining in the theater. That is a must. It's like it should be in your bucket list, honestly. If they play it again in a theater, I will be there. I'll say that much. All right, let's do another Stephen King movie. Let's do Carrie. Now, I actually really like this movie a lot. And I'm putting it in rules because it fucking rules. And the reason I like it so much is because it mixes fear with kind of sadness really well. I actually think it's a very sad movie. You feel really bad for the main character and what she goes through. And it makes the climax all the more terrifying when it happens. I also love all the performances by the girls who play her classmates in this movie. There's some really fun, sort of campy dialogue that happens with the coach and the other girls. The music is great. There's like two songs in it by Katie Irving, who's the sister of Amy Irving, who plays Sue in this movie. And those two songs are really great. You should check them out. And yeah, as far as Stephen King movies go, this is one of the best for sure. These two here are like in the top five, hands down. And let's see, let's do another Hitchcock movie. Let's do Psycho. Yeah, Psycho. Psycho is great. It doesn't quite rule because it's not perfect. And the reason it's not perfect is because of the very last scene in the movie. And for those of you who have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Um, Basically, without giving anything away, although I don't know how you can spoil Psycho since it's 2022, they provide an explanation for what happens, and it's totally unneeded. And because of that scene, it just barely misses the top tier, barely. And I actually prefer the sequel, Psycho 2, which I will talk about in another video, why I actually prefer that one. But Psycho is definitely a must watch. I mean, if you take a film class, they'll probably make you watch it, as they should. Uh, it has great performances in it. And it's also a movie to be seen in the theater if you haven't seen it. All right, cool. Let's do The Blob. I know earlier I said that I don't really like sci-fi horror movies, but I kind of love The Blob. The Blob is great. The special effects in this movie are unlike anything I've ever seen, and they're all practical effects because, in the 80s they didn't have CGI, or if they did, it wasn't used very much. And the effects in this movie are outstanding. I mean, the performances aren't that great, but the fact that uh, the the blob scenes are so gross and over the top, it more than makes up for that. I also like that it has this kind of 1950s sort of diner vibe, sort of a throwback to the 1950s horror movies where they had all these sci-fi movies like the original Blob. And I believe Chuck Russell directed it, who also made Dream Warriors, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and that's another awesome movie. So if you haven't seen The Blob, definitely watch that. All right, let's see here. Let's do Friday the 13th. Okay, Friday the 13th is good. It's not great and it doesn't rule, it's not perfect. Um but for what it is, I mean, it's a pretty good watch. I love the performance by sorry, her name is escaping me now. By Betsy Palmer. That's her name. She's great in this. It's worth watching if you haven't seen, especially if you're a fan of the slasher genre. Then it's definitely a must watch. The music is great by Henry Manfredini, I think his name is. It has that really famous and it's definitely a fun, like, sort of B movie. And when I saw it, I was a kid and I thought it was really scary. And now I watch it and I'm like, mm. There's other movies that are definitely scarier. Um, Seeing Kevin Bacon in it is fun, but and also the location is really nice. Whatever lake they filmed it in, I think in New Jersey or something, it's beautiful. So those shots are really nice. So let's see, and let's do the next one to be Friday the 13th, part 2. And this might be controversial, but I I'm gonna put it at good. It's not quite great, but I will say that if I had to choose between these two, I would pick part 2. I like part 2 better. The final girl in this movie is awesome. I mean, she kicks butt. The way that she outsmarts Jason and manipulates him to save herself is really awesome. I wish that we would see more stuff like that in horror movies. And as far as this franchise goes, this is easily in the top 3 in the series for me, which the original isn't, but it's still worth watching. Okay, let's do Child's Play. Okay, the original Chucky movie. And it's good. It's definitely good. Um, especially the first, I would say the first like hour of this movie are really awesome. The way it builds suspense up until the point where he first comes to life in the hands of Karen Barkley. But there are other movies in the series that I prefer over this one. But it was the original, and for what it was, it's a fun watch if you haven't seen it. If you're a fan of the Chucky series, then you have to watch the original just so you can see where it all started. One thing I will say though is that they've definitely improved the effects since this movie. Like in part two, he looks so much more animated and better than in this one. But it's still pretty good. I would definitely check it out. All right, let's see. I think earlier I mentioned Cannibal Holocaust, not Hannibal Holocaust. Cannibal Holocaust is a really graphic movie. Also has a great soundtrack that's kind of weirdly serene for what this movie is. If you don't like gore though, then stay far, far, far away from this movie. To be fair, it's not a great movie. I kind of want to put it at mediocre. It is kind of one of the original found footage movies, but it's certainly nowhere near as good as the Blair Witch Project. And I don't really like super gory stuff, so for me, it's a movie I could only watch once just to say I watched it, and that was enough for me. So, like, the gore stuff is not my thing as far as horror movies go. So, yeah, Cannibal Holocaust, kind of mediocre. Okay, let's do the Evil Dead, the original one. So the original Evil Dead is awesome. I'm gonna say it's great. This is another movie that you gotta watch in the theater, just because all the scenes where the camera just flies through the forest and zooms in on things really quickly is so much cooler in the theater. Um, One thing I will say though is that the build up in this movie is like super slow. It takes about 30 minutes or so until like it really starts going. But once it does, it's just nonstop until the end of the movie. Um, this is like a true cult classic. I watched it for the first time in college and I was so happy I did. I remember at that time it was like on Netflix all the time, back when they had good movies on Netflix, which they don't really anymore. Open House. And let's see. Let's do the original Fly from the 50s. So, this is a Vincent Price horror movie, and it's super cheesy and over the top, but it's fun. It's enjoyable. There are some fun lines that you can quote in it, but it's definitely not scary. It's kind of more funny than scary, just like how I think Paranormal Activity is more funny than scary. But you know, I like the Vincent Price horror movies. I like House on Haunted Hill. So if uh, if that's something that you might be into, then definitely check it out. Let's do Dawn of the Dead, the remake from 2004. Okay, so Dawn of the Dead 2004 is pretty good. I actually really liked it. I don't like most remakes, but this one was well done. It is shorter than the original. It's not as good as the original. It didn't really need to be remade, but once you get over that, it's actually a pretty decent zombie movie. The zombies are scary, the makeup is well done, um, the characters are one dimensional, which, I mean, so are most of the other characters in a zombie movie, right? With the exception of Night of the Living Dead. But that's why the Night of the Living Dead is at the top and you aren't. Okay, now let's go down to 28 Days Later. I haven't seen this in a while. I kind of even don't want to rank it just because I don't remember that much of it. I remember it was good. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to leave it off just because I need to rewatch it before I have an opinion. Let's do Zombie, the Italian horror movie. It's graphic. It's also kind of slow. Um, it takes a while before anything happens in it. I'm gonna say it's fair. I mean, it definitely has some amazing effects for the time. It's kind of hard to watch, but yeah. As far as if you like Italian horror movies from the '70s, then yeah, you have to watch that one. But I would still probably prefer like Suspiria or something over that, which I'll rank that next. Suspiria is not a perfect movie, by the way. I just love the soundtrack and the bright, vivid colors in it are awesome. It is better than Zombie, but I'm gonna put it right next to Zombie. Um, I think that it sometimes gets overhyped. However, the soundtrack by Goblin is worth the price of admission in and of itself. I watched this at the Castro Theater in San Francisco once, and it's pretty awesome. Sometimes they do shows where they have Goblin perform the soundtrack while the movie's playing in the background. If you can catch that, then definitely go watch that because that's probably awesome. I would go see that. Now let's do Children of the Corn. Okay. Children of the Corn is fair. It's not great. The performances are kind of hit and miss. The guy who plays Isaac is super creepy in that. Also, the one who plays Malachi terrified me as a kid. This movie was really scary to watch as a kid. It probably gave me nightmares. And I have read the short story by Stephen King, and that was actually much darker than this movie. But the music is very creepy. I know I say that for a lot of these, but a lot of these movies have a really great soundtrack. So what can I say? And let's do another one. Let's see. We'll do The Exorcist. The Exorcist is great. I mean, it's scary, especially for the time. It was really scary. I was so happy that I got to meet Linda Blair when I went to Monster Palooza in Pasadena a few years ago, and that was really cool. This movie, if you haven't seen it, it's a must watch. The performance by Linda Blair, of course, and also the mother who's played by sorry, one second. I'm so sorry. Her name totally escapes me right now. But she's an amazing actress and she won an Oscar for The Exorcist. And fun fact, she was one of the few actresses, or maybe the only actress, to win an Academy Award for Best Actress 2 years in a row. The next year, she won for Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which is a Martin Scorsese film. If you haven't watched that, then you should definitely check it out. All right, now let's move on. Let's do Poltergeist. So, Poltergeist rules. It's my favorite haunted house movie, unless you count The Shining, but it's awesome. And yes, some of the effects are kind of dated and cheesy, but It was one of the first horror movies I watched as a kid because it used to be on TV all the time, and I love watching that movie. Once again, the music is great. It has a very Steven Spielberg feel to it, and even though he technically didn't direct it, at least not by what the credits say, but it certainly feels like he did. I'll say that much. And if you haven't watched it, you should definitely check it out. I might do a video on this movie later on. Okay, so let's do Jaws. For those of you who don't know, which none of you should because I haven't said it yet on this channel, Jaws is like my favorite movie of all time. I just think it's perfect. You have to see it in the theater on film. That's the only way to watch it. I won't even speak to people about that movie if they haven't seen it under those circumstances. But if you were one of the lucky people to see it when it first came out, then you know exactly how awesome it is. I got to see it at the Castro Theater on film, and that is the way to watch it. It is much scarier. The soundtrack is much louder. The sounds of the shark are much more intense and loud, and the shark holds up, to be honest. Considering it was 1975, it really doesn't look that fake. Now, the sharks in the sequels, however, are another story. Those sharks kind of look like shit. But the one in this movie was pretty scary. Another movie that scared me a lot as a kid. So, Steven Spielberg hasn't made a lot of scary movies, but when he does, he knows how to make them. That's for sure. Okay, let's do Halloween from 1978. Now, I like Halloween. Um, is it perfect? No. Um, Suspenseful? Yes. The music is great. I love the sound effects every time Michael Myers jumps out, and it's like this. So that's pretty cool. It definitely influenced the slasher genre. I'm gonna put it at good. Um, for me, it's not perfect. It's almost great, just not quite. There are a few things wrong with it, and this is gonna be controversial, but the way that the characters scream in this movie are not very good. Like kind of cheesy in a few parts. They just don't sound realistic. And there's a few scenes that are not meant to be funny but kind of play as funny, like, oh my god, the keys, the keys. I always laugh whenever that scene comes up in this film. But it's good. It's worth watching. It's classic. I love the look of Michael Myers with the mask. The mask looks great in this movie, but it's one of those movies where I kind of, sort of prefer the sequel, Halloween 2. Another controversial statement. Don't hate me in the comments. I might do a video about why eventually. Um, but yeah, Halloween is worth watching for sure, and it's a classic. It made a ton of money considering that it was made for like no money, and to me that's impressive. Just like with the Blair Witch Project, which was made for like no money and made like hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So let's see. Let's do Frankenstein from 1930 something. 32? 33 maybe? I don't remember. Maybe it's 35. But this is another movie that scared me a lot as a kid. Um, Especially the scene where he throws the little girl in the pond, like that messed me up. I was like, "Oh my gosh, they just killed that little girl in that movie." And as a kid, I was like, "Oh wow, there's horror movies where not even kids are safe." So that kind of really scared me a lot. And the look of Frankenstein is great. And I'm sure in the 1930s, this movie must have terrified people because it still holds up pretty well. It's a classic universal horror movie. I'm gonna say it's good. It's really good. It's just barely misses being great. And I just want to say, if you're looking at my rankings and you're thinking like, how the hell could he put, I don't know, The Blob ahead of Halloween? This is just my opinion. You can make great arguments that, Halloween is better for all sorts of reasons. Scream is better for all sorts of reasons. But this is just like pure enjoyment basis. The horror movies I like tend to be ones that are kind of like, I don't know, a little bit sort of different, if you will. I mean, I have a lot of well known ones like Jaws, The Shining, um, certainly Psycho, Exorcist. Those are all well known and I think they're great. It's just that, I don't know, some that I know people really love, they just, I don't know, maybe I just have to rewatch them and I like them better. I've seen Halloween so many times though, and I've seen it in the theater. And it's one thing I will say, Halloween is so fun to watch with an audience because people are screaming, they're saying, "Don't do that, don't go behind there, no, don't do that." They're shutting their eyes. People like throw popcorn at the screen. See, I wish that like people still did that in movie theaters the way they did in the 70s because I think that just makes the movie going experience so much more fun. Now you go to a movie and everyone is super quiet or they're like looking at their cell phone and texting someone. It's not the same anymore. Let's bring back the olden days of movie going where people would shout and scream at the screen in unison. That was fun. Okay, let's do Creepshow. Creepshow is awesome. I think it's great. I'm kind of a sucker for horror movie anthologies. And Creepshow is really freaking awesome. uh, Certainly, some of the stories are better than others, but I love the way it's tied together with this comic book feel with like these bright, sort of neon colors in the background and like biff, pow, all that sort of stuff. Um, My favorite story in Creepshow is probably the Leslie Nielsen story with the two lovers that he puts in the sand. And it's super well done, super creepy. You don't really get to see Leslie Nielsen play the bad guy very often, and he does it really well. If you haven't seen Creepshow, you gotta check it out. Definitely watch it with friends. It's a fun watch. I remember some teacher I had in high school put it on for Halloween, which was like a big deal at the time because it was rated R, and everyone liked it. They thought it was a nice little treat for Halloween. So, yep, Creepshow. Okay, let's do Evil Dead 2. And you know what? Evil Dead 2 is great. I love the Evil Dead movies, especially the first two. Those are my favorite. If I had to pick one, I would say Evil Dead 2 all the way, just because it's so over the top. Kind of like Brain Dead. Those two movies, like if they ever show them in the theater, they should show them back to back as a double feature. They go so well together. Uh, The visuals are really great. The practical effects, considering it was also made for like very little money, is pretty impressive. It's kind of like what happens when the people making a movie have total creative freedom to do whatever the hell they want. Then you get a movie like Evil Dead. And Evil Dead 2, I mean, but also Evil Dead. And yeah, the payoff is great. Most of you have probably seen Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. If you haven't, you need to. Um, if you're just getting into horror movies, they're great movies to start off with. They're not like super duper duper scary, but they are fun. Also, if you can see them in the theater, that's the way to go. Okay, now let's see. Let's do House, the Japanese horror movie, which I've also seen in the theater at the Alamo Draft House, and it was awesome. House is so weird. This is a movie that you're either gonna love or hate, honestly. It's like super duper cheesy and makes no sense at all. I mean, I couldn't follow it. Maybe someone can follow what happens in House. Um, it's just really amusing and remarkable and all kinds of craziness. It doesn't really have a plot. It doesn't really need to have a plot. It just is. It's just a jumble of messy creativity in Japan. That's all I'll say about House. And it has some cool 70s songs in it. Like, there's one really good song at the end by a band called Go Diego. It's called Yes, I Thank You. Go look it up if you haven't heard it. It's pretty good. So now let's go down to The Ring. The Ring is a movie that we all watched when I was a kid because it was everywhere. This movie was like really, really, really popular. And it's just been parodied so many times that I don't think that it really holds up that well. I'm going to say that it's fair. um, I should probably rewatch it just because it's been a while, but I don't remember it being absolutely horrifying. I know that the effects were good for the time, but like I said, it's just been made fun of so much that it's hard to take it seriously anymore. Um, so, if you disagree with me about The Ring, let me know in the comments below and maybe I'll watch it again. Let's do Eyes Without a Face. I saw this kind of recently. I was really eager to see it because I thought it would be super creepy, and it honestly wasn't. It was kind of slow and mediocre. I know it's like a classic, but I just didn't see what all the hype was about. Um, yeah, and there's other movies from that time period that are much, much scarier and better movies, like Rosemary's Baby, for example, which we'll do next. And I'm going to put this at rules. This movie rules. It's a perfect example of why slow suspense can be much more effective than like jump scares because the payoff at the end makes it all worth it. And the way that Roman Polanski, the director, gets you, the audience, to kind of become paranoid with the main character as she's discovering more and more clues and no one will believe her and she's getting gaslighted left and right. And then the ending comes and it just ties everything together. This movie, Rosemary's Baby, one of the great horror movies ever, 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 ever. 10 out of 10. You have to watch it. I would put it above The Exorcist. Similar genre. I just think that Rosemary's Baby handles the material, um, that it's given a little bit better. And also, I just think that it's such a timely, kind of political statement, actually, that can definitely resonate with the times we're living in now, and it probably will in the future too. So, Rosemary's Baby, definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. Let's do A Nightmare on Elm Street. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for good. Yeah. Um, it's good. Actually, I'm tempted to put it in great, but I just wouldn't feel right putting it above Scream. Um, and it's also not a perfect movie. One thing I will say, though, it is the scariest Freddy movie in the franchise in terms of just sheer scare factor. The first one is the scariest. I still prefer part 3 though, which I'll talk about in another video once I do my rankings of some of these franchises. But Nightmare on Elm Street is a classic for sure. I love Freddy Krueger's makeup in this one, and his voice seems to be much deeper and more menacing than in the sequels. Um, Also, Heather Langenkamp, great performance. John Saxon, who plays the father, and he's also a police officer. Almost the same character he plays in Black Christmas, which is another slasher movie that you definitely should watch if you haven't seen. But I would definitely check it out if you haven't seen it, which if you haven't seen Nightmare on Elm Street, I don't know what you're doing here on this channel, to be honest. But I mean, maybe it's possible. So watch that if you haven't. Creature from the Black Lagoon. Okay. Classic horror movie from the 50s. Lots of fun. This would be really fun to see with an audience. The makeup is great. The reaction shots of the characters in these movies, in these 50s horror movies, is so funny. Um, especially like when the monster approaches and it just has this shot of them going. I love that. I wish, actually, I don't know if I wish movies still did that, but it's fun to see it in old movies. It's a classic for a reason. The fish is like really gross and weird looking. It's super iconic. I need to rewatch this. It's been a while, but I remember liking it, so you should check it out. And let's see. The Hills Have Eyes. This is a Wes Craven movie from the 70s. I didn't really care for it. Maybe I need to rewatch it. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I don't know. I just didn't see what all the hype was about. I'm going to say it's mediocre. It's definitely not the best Wes Craven movie, and it's honestly one of the cases where I think the remake is better. So, but yeah, if you disagree, let me know in the comments and maybe I'll rewatch that one. It's just kind of whatever. Let's do Saw. Okay, this might be controversial. Saw is so overrated. I'm sorry. Like, essentially, it's 7, but gorier. And 7 is a better movie. Um, it's more well thought out than Saw. I know Saw has like a million sequels. I haven't seen the sequels. Also, it kind of falls in like the genre of like torture and stuff, which I'm not really into. Um, it's just not, those aren't fun movies for me to watch. And so Saw is kind of falling low on the list. If you're a Saw fan, I apologize, but you should watch 7 if you haven't seen it, because I think it handles that sort of plot much, much better than Saw. Okay, The Vanishing. The Vanishing is a French slash Dutch movie, I believe, from the 80s, and it is one of the creepiest movies I have ever seen. It's great. It's not your typical horror movie where there's like jump scares and stuff like that. There's not like tons of visuals or anything. It's a slow burn for sure. Kind of like Rosemary's Baby, but the payoff at the end is mind blowing, where you're just sitting there in shock trying to process everything that just happened. Definitely watch The Vanishing if you haven't seen it. I think it's a Criterion movie. If not, it should be. It's really one of those movies that I really like it. I watched it in college back when I was like really into movies and trying to explore all kinds of new genres and stuff, and I was really blown away by The Vanishing. It's creepy. It is one creepy movie. Now let's do Cujo. Cujo's fair. It's not one of the better Stephen King movies. It has like one of the best jump scares ever when Dee Wallace is in the car with her son, and it just has this enormous jump scare that you're not expecting at all. And Friday the 13th Part 2 also has one of the biggest jump scares that I can think of. However, Cujo is not as good, and really it's actually kind of a slow movie, and most of the effects are not very good in it. Um, it's just kind of forgettable as a horror movie, so I wouldn't be too upset if they remade Cujo and like made it much better. Maybe if they got the people who made it to remake Cujo, that could be cool. But as far as what it is, I'm just like, whatever. Videodrome. Now, I am a David Cronenberg fan. That's why I put The Fly pretty high up. Videodrome is a weird movie. Very weird movie. Kind of a depressing movie. Just the tone is not. It's just very bleak, which is kind of a criticism I have of a lot of Cronenberg movies. They're just very dark, and you leave a Cronenberg movie feeling kind of like this sense of dread and just yucky. And Videodrome's no exception. So I'm kind of tempted to put it in fair. It's like hovering between fair and good. Um, I probably need to rewatch it. It's been a while, but the effects are really good. It has a lot of like really gross, over the top, like decomposition scenes of people, and that's one thing I remember about it. It's kind of a mind f. Like you can't really describe what happens in it to somebody. They just have to see it. And I think probably in the 80s it was a little more relatable just because of, the VCRs and the prevalence of those kinds of televisions in those days. But now I don't know if it would hold up as well. So, but let me know in the comments below what you think of Videodrome and if it's worth watching again. Let's do Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is good. It is good. I think it's scary. Um it's not a fun movie by any means. It's in some ways it's scarier than Halloween, honestly. And it's weird because these are two movies that, despite being remembered as like gory or slasher movies, they don't really have uh, any gore at all. So that's kind of interesting. Toby Hooper, who made this, did a really good job. It's kind of sort of found footagey slash documentary like, and I bet in the 70s people were terrified of it. They probably messed people up in the 70s. Um, I didn't care for the remakes, so it's definitely better than those. I don't think the sequels were very good. I know that the second sequel is like super cheesy. Um, but yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Pretty scary. Yeah. Let's do Hostel. I don't like these kinds of torture movies. I'm gonna put it in, mediocre. It's also like very revengey and kind of like, I know that's kind of a whole genre of horror movies that I don't really care for. It's just not an enjoyable movie. Um, I know people like those movies. Eli Roth is really hit and miss for me. He's made like two movies I liked, and a lot of movies that I didn't. I might do a whole video about his stuff eventually. But let me know what you think of Hostel in the comments below. Do you agree that it's too gory? And it's not gory like Dead Alive, which is just cartoony and over the top. I think Eli Roth tries to go for the realistic kind of gore, which I don't care for at all. All right, let's do The Thing. The Thing is great. I almost put it in rules. Not quite, just because it kind of drags in some areas, but overall, The Thing is awesome. The soundtrack by Ennio and Morricone is kick-ass. The effects are great. It's probably a movie that's better seen in the theater, although I haven't seen it in the theater. Um, I'm a fan of John Carpenter, actually, but the movies that I put in the top of my list from his are like not not necessarily the horror movies. Like I really like Escape from New York and Escape from LA. Christine is great. Kind of his other movies that don't really fit the horror genre are the ones that I actually tend to like a little better. But The Thing is awesome. Um, if you haven't seen this, then you need to go and watch The Thing. Okay, now we're sort of coming to the endish here since I haven't seen a lot of these movies. But let's do the Babadook. Babadook. Oops. Babadook is good. It is good. It is really creepy. The the character of the Babadook, like the first time you watch that movie, you're just like, just because ugh, it's just really creepy. Someone mentioned to me once that the Babadook is like a metaphor for parents not wanting to deal with their bratty children or something. And so the Babadook is like the sense of dread that comes with being a parent or something like that. I thought that was interesting and kind of funny. But if you haven't seen the Babadook, it's an Australian horror movie, and it's good. Yeah, you need to watch it. Definitely check that out. Okay. And sorry, this is we've been doing this a while, so I'm getting more and more tired as the video goes on, but I'll try to wrap it up soon. Let's do Army of Darkness. So Army of Darkness, the third Evil Dead movie, and it's fair. It's kind of like, I know people love it. It's just too like humorous and cheesy. It's fun to see with an audience, but it's not as good as Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2. And it's also not really a horror movie, so I don't even know why it's on this list. Like I get it's the third in the series, but can you really call Army of Darkness a horror movie? I don't think so. If you disagree, let me know in the comments below. Okay. And let's do I don't think I've seen any of these. House of Wax. Now, House of Wax is another Vincent Price movie from the 50s, and it's creepy. It's good. It's worth watching. It's better than The Fly. So if you have to pick one, definitely watch that. I think wax museums are super creepy. I don't know what it is about these wax figures of people that just stand there in stillness and you think they're going to move or come to life. So, but yeah, Vincent Price has made some great horror movies in the 50s. This isn't great. I still think House on Haunted Hill is the best Vincent Price movie. If you haven't watched that, then go watch that instead. I don't know why that's not on this list, but that's a recommendation I have for sure. And let's let's see. I don't think I've seen any of these movies. Or if I have, it was like a long time ago, and I don't remember. I know that Shivers is a David Cronenberg movie. It was like one of his early ones. Last House on the Left, I've never seen, which is like the first Wes Craven movie. So I should probably watch those. Um, Ju-on is the original Grudge movie. I haven't seen that either. Ringu, the original Japanese version of The Ring. I haven't watched that. If any of these movies down here are like really good and they're a must watch, please let me know in the comments below. And I might rewatch 28 Days Later just to get an opinion again. But this concludes my ranking of these movies. And there are some that are not that surprising. There's some that surprise me where I rank them. And there are some that are probably going to, make people upset just because of like, everyone has different opinions about what's better and what isn't. But I think that that this ranking pretty much sums up how I feel about these movies. So thank you for watching, and let me know in the comments below if you would change anything. I didn't put anything in terrible, actually, which kind of surprises me because I thought that there would be a couple that I would say this just sucks and don't watch it, skip it. But actually, there's not really anything here that's that bad. Um, I just don't like Train to Busan. I was really disappointed in it. The effects are good and stuff, and I like movies that take place on a train. It just like I keep your emotional drama and you know sentimental crap out of zombie movies. I wonder what George Romero would say about Train to Busan. I know he doesn't like The Walking Dead show. Didn't like The Walking Dead show. May he rest in peace. But yeah, so maybe you wouldn't like that one. I don't know. Anyways, now I'm just rambling, so I will go ahead and end this. But thank you for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments below. If I missed anything, if you would change anything. And as always, have a great rest of your day.